what are the unique challenges that brands have when they think about SPO today?
Yeah, well, if you zoom out from this whole complicated space, there's really only two constituents that matter in this whole problem: the buyer and the seller. So the marketer matters, the publisher matters. Everyone else in the middle is just serving one of those two entities. And we are very focused on serving the buyer, the marketer, not the agency, the marketer. And in particular, we do a lot of work with marketers who've decided that they want to take more control over their programmatic operations for a variety of reasons. And so they built these in-house teams, and they have direct relationships with their DSPs and ad servers and a whole variety of buy-side technologies. What those companies have realized is that if they're really going to fulfill their internal objectives of taking control of how they execute programmatically, it is insufficient to just get to the layer of the DSP. That behind the DSP are dozens of different exchanges that are serving as marketplaces for executing these programmatic trades. And I think marketers who are at the edge of innovation are realizing if they don't take control of that layer as well, they really aren't fulfilling this whole goal of having a clear line of sight into how their dollars transact with publishers. And so we spend a lot of our time trying to help solve that problem, particularly for in-house brands.
Okay, so that clear line of sight is much harder to achieve than one might imagine. What have you discovered, and what are the things that you're doing with those brands, or what are you illuminating from them, and the methods that you actually use to bring that data to them?
Yeah, well, just to frame the problem is most of the marketers we work with, when they look closely at their DSP data, realize that they've been transacting through 50 or more different programmatic marketplaces. A variety of display-oriented exchanges and video-oriented exchanges and native exchanges and special formats exchanges. And that complexity is just too big of a problem to solve. If the marketer really wants to have a clear line of sight into how their dollars are working, it's too big and messy of a problem to transact through 50 exchanges. And so we think of this as sort of multiple stages of curating the supply chain. But step one is just stop transacting through 50 exchanges, many of whom process inventory for exactly the same publishers and the same ad units, and consolidate down to a set of trusted partners who give scale, transparency, and efficiency. And then you can have a more manageable scope of complexity to solve. If you can go from 50 exchanges to, let's say, 8 is a list of partners who I can really work with. I can get to know those 8 companies. I can engage in data sharing agreements with those 8 companies. I can establish preferred business relationships with those 8 companies. I cannot do that with 50. So for us, the first step is just simply consolidate down to a set of trusted partners who can collectively power 100% of my media buy.
Okay, so now you've worked with that partner. You've honed down the number of exchanges they work with. What are the top data points that are coming out through the work that you do that are driving optimization? What are the levers that are really making a difference? And what's been, I'd say, an interesting point of discovery along the way, certainly for the brand customers you work with?
Sure. There's this whole thing is about achieving transparency. If you can have transparency, then you can take control. And there are 2 types of transparency that come out of this consolidation effort. Fee transparency is the one that gets all the headlines. Supply path transparency is the one that doesn't. And it's the one that I think is much more impactful. So fee transparency means if I'm transacting through an exchange, I'd like to know the total economics of how my full dollar of working media gets distributed across a variety of technology companies and then is eventually paid to the publisher. That is important. I don't take anything away from that. Supply path transparency helps me understand the technical chain of connections that deliver my bid to the final decisioning point in the publisher's ad server. And both of those are outputs of this consolidation effort. As marketers build strategic alliances with exchanges, they can achieve fee transparency and they can achieve supply path transparency. What we have learned is that supply path transparency output is much more impactful to helping marketers transact efficiently with publishers than the fee transparency component.
Yeah. So we know that buyers have a choice. They may work with multiple SSPs, but they also work through multiple integration types.
Yeah.
What types of testing do you do? Like how do you engage with that customer, and how do you find out the right path for your customer, or suggested path?
So we maintain a comprehensive catalog of every supply path that exists. There's something like 12 million of them. And we get that data through a mixture of publisher ads.txt files, publisher app ads.txt files, and exchange sellers.json files. It's all publicly available data. We just organize it. We then, for a small subset of those 12 million paths that exist, run experiments. The marketers that we work with authorize us to use...
You're using their dollars.
We use their DSP seat to conduct research. And the objective of the research is not to buy media efficiently for them. In fact, it's often to buy media inefficiently so that we can put some math around what are the economic trade-offs of transacting with a certain publisher through path A or path B or path C. And then we take those insights and we attach it to this full catalog of 12 million supply paths. What we learned from that is there are a handful of exchanges that overwhelmingly provide high-scale, high-efficiency access to supply, but that even within those exchanges, there's a huge diversity of the way that they integrate with publishers, which make some transaction paths much more efficient ways for the buyer and seller to connect than others. And so our general point of view is it's insufficient to just do the thing we were talking about going from 50 exchanges to 8. Within the 8, you then need to have a highly curated point of view on, based on my business objectives and the technology that I use, which subset of that company's integrations are going to be useful for my business and which ones are not.
Okay. Last question. In the work that you've done, have you discovered that there's like a silver bullet path to success, or is the path to success highly variable based on your customers' individual needs?
There is no one-size-fits-all solution to supply path optimization. Depending upon the DSP or DSPs that the marketer uses, the answer will be different. Depending on the types of audience targeting that the marketer wants to use, the answer will be different. Depending on the inventory formats that the marketer cares about, the answer will be different. And so there is just not a single answer to supply path optimization. We think every brand needs to take the time to do a proper process in understanding what are the supply paths that exist, and then build a supply chain strategy that's fit for their business.